Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of Lloyd's Dressing Gown Diaries. It's been a while. I unfortunately didn't get around to doing the review of the last weekend of the Six Nations, but to be honest, was there much to talk about? Surely the game in Cardiff was to be expected. England showing up for what they are, Wales showing some true form and absolutely destroying them. I could spend a long time talking about that game, but of course that would just be gloating. And to be honest, I don't see much need. Now that the squad has been announced for the Lions, that's really what I want to talk about. And Wales have been rewarded by their solid performance latter part of the tournament with a strong showing of 15 players. So, what do we think of the squad? Well, I think let's start off with the captain. Gatland's looked at it, thought, wow, who do I really want leading from the front? And he's gone, well, you know what? Young Sam. He's PR savvy, he's intelligent, he's a solid player, he's had two world-class games, he played incredibly well against England. I think he's thought, I know how he works, I know what's going on, I want mobile forwards, he's my captain. And then if we look at the forwards, mobile is the key part that he's thought about there. He wants players that can hit rucks, he wants players that can get across the ground, which is why he's favoured Matt Stevens. It's a bit of a controversial call, and I feel a bit sorry for Rory Best. He was certainly my pick at the beginning of the season to perhaps be the Lions' number 2. In fairness, his tournament wasn't great, but I think now you're probably looking at Hibberd in an all Welsh front row with Jenkins and Jones, because he does want people who can cover the ground, attack rucks, get quick ball. He's favoured the back row as well, looking at it, players that can cover the ground quickly, people like Tom Croft and Jamie Heaslip. Neither of them were outstanding in the Six Nations, but what they do bring is pace, raw ability, and of course they can hit rucks hard. Both of them offer line-out options as well, which if you look at the all-Welsh back row of perhaps Tipperick, Warburton and Faletau, you miss those options in the line-out. So those are certainly a consideration. So the other debate going backwards into the backs, the two fly halves. Is this a risk? Is it not? Well, time will tell, but certainly the theory behind it being that you want to give both fly halves time to adapt, time to play with their players and discover what's happening with the backs. If you don't have time, and you wouldn't have if you had 3, they wouldn't get enough game time before tests. I think it's a shame that Wilkinson isn't going. I will be surprised if he doesn't make an appearance at some point during this tour though, because I think injuries will come forward. And clearly the way he played in the Heineken Cup, I mean, unfortunately fouled in his last 2 big games. He was destroyed in Cardiff, and he had pretty much the same effect at Twickenham with Wilkinson. So he's had a tough time at the office recently. The centres, as to be expected, I think Tuilangi's obviously slipped in. Then the back 3, well, there aren't really any great shocks. Maitland perhaps one of the biggest ones, but all in all, the squad's almost as you see it. I didn't see any space at all for Chris Ashton. Brad Barrett's obviously got injured that ruled him out of contention. I didn't see space for in the front 8 with Rob Shaw. He'll feel a bit aggrieved. He played incredibly well in England's colours, but I think when it comes to the fast tracks of Australia, he's not really what you want. So what we're going to do over the summer, I'm going to review and preview the games as we build up to the Test Match Series. We'll be discussing prior to the Lions game in Hong Kong against the Barbarians. And we'll also then make comments as and when injuries and change of squad. I have had a couple of questions through Twitter. The first one was Matt Stevens question mark. Well, I've kind of covered that. I think he's a very mobile player. I think he's played well. From everything I've read as well, he's a great tourist. And that's one of the crucial parts of the Lions tour. You're going into a tour here that lasts a long time with players that you don't really know. I read an interesting article by Brian Moore. He may not be everyone's cup of tea, but his point was that when you go on a Lions tour, there isn't an established front 15. No one really knows who's going to be selected at the moment. Whereas if you go on a tour with your country, you already know who the front 15 are. You know who the first choice players are, and you know who the up and coming players. What we've got now is a squad of 37 players, and no one actually knows who's going to be starting in any position. Sam Warburton, obviously as captain, is probably more exempt than anyone else. But you're then talking 14 players' jerseys that are up for grabs. And then it's how the players deal with the disappointment of not being in the test squad. I mean, we've seen how some divisive tours can be. Certainly Austin Healey and Matt Dawson have been very divisive in their time on Lions tours. you've really got to be able to suck it up as Jason Leonard did. He led the midweek team, led it with aplomb, and they were unbeaten. They obviously then end up carrying the tackle bags for the weekend at the test side, which someone's got to do, and it's whether the boys have the mental capacity to be able to pick themselves up and go, I understand that I'm perhaps not the top player in my position at the moment, I'll accept that, I'll carry the bags and, you know, support the team, and if opportunity comes my way, I'll be ready to take it. So I do hope the players take that on board. Gatland is a clever coach. I've heard a great story. He was being interviewed by a female journalist watching a training session at Wales. She walked up to him and said, "Okay, Warren, I've been here for half an hour and I haven't seen you do anything." He said, "Yeah," and walked off. His theory being, if it's all working well, he obviously doesn't need to do anything. He's got his coaching team lined up. He knows what he's dealing with. Bringing in Farrell was an astute move. Bringing in Graham Roundtree as well, because he wants to mix it up a bit. So that's it for the moment. Just the final thing to let you know, I've obviously relocated this to the Dressing Gown Diaries. We've got a YouTube page, we've got a Facebook page, and you can follow me on Twitter at DGownDiaries as well for all the updates. Any questions, let me know. Good to speak to you all. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.